How in the hell could a man enjoy being awakened at 8:30 a.m. by an alarm clock, leap out of bed, dress, force feed, shit, piss, brush teeth and hair, and fight traffic to get to a place where essentially you made lots of money for somebody else and were asked to be grateful for the opportunity to do so? That's a quote from Charles Bukowski. This is one of those quotes that apparently Charles Bukowski never actually said, but it is attributed to him. It's not in any of his actual books, though. But no matter. Whoever said it was spot on. Now, this thing first came about in 1975, so some things are a bit out of date. Like, at least remote working is mostly popular enough that the traffic thing doesn't happen. At least not as many days as it would have back then. But the point still stands. We live in a world of work. A world of work not for ourselves, oftentimes, but for the man, in quotes. The man is a motif, a symbol. Doesn't necessarily have to be a man even, but it often is. The man is control. The man is the owner of production. The man is the capitalist. My name is Anthony, and this is my take on late-stage capitalism. So, this is going to be a talking head video. In fact, this channel is going to be a talking head channel. So welcome to this talking head channel. This is the thought stream of one Gen Zer, I guess, realizing the time and place he lives in and trying to make sense of it. That's why I wanted to start with late-stage capitalism. I mean, what is late-stage capitalism really? There isn't really a good definition for it that anyone can agree on. It's not well defined. So I'll add another 2 cents to the giant wishing well of opinions about this. In my head, late-stage capitalism, which is where we are now, is basically the point of capitalism where it is too difficult for individual players in the game of capitalism to actually have an effect on anything. Think oligarchy, monopoly, state-run. But the difference is that the state in late-stage capitalism is also a private entity. The state is a business just as much as a business is a business. As an example, Apple actually have more cash on hand than the United States government, apparently. Obviously, the government can make more, but in terms of who is more able to get out of debt, it would be Apple. We're at a point where most of our lives as normal people, and I'm not American, I'm from South Africa, but most of our lives as normal people are controlled in some way, whether we like it or not, by giant multinational corporations. And that, for me, is late-stage capitalism. Because capitalism in and of itself is just a system that, and currently the best system we have, that describes turning productivity into money. That's all, really. And that productivity doesn't have to come from you as the owner of the thing that can produce. Whereas in socialism, maybe not socialism, in communism, the owner of the thing that produces is always the state. It's never an individual. But with late-stage capitalism, it's like, that is true technically. Like, technically I can start a business, but actually succeeding is really hard because you get squashed down by the existing group, right? The existing proletariat, as people used to say. Now, I'm not a leftist or a Marxist. I'm just a Gen Zer realizing what he's in. But what we have found, I think, as people, particularly since COVID was a moment where the glass kind of shattered a bit, where you're like, oh, this is the world we live in. There was always a thinking with capitalists that if a sector was dominated by a company, competitors would naturally emerge to compete, right? But this just isn't happening anymore. Because those companies, whenever they see competitors, they crush them. And this has been happening for decades, all over the world. And it's created a society that is basically merging into one global thing where we all consume from the same place. So now the issue is, if we all consume from the same place, we all get funded by the same place. And what happens if that place decides to start laying people off, firing people, hiring less people, replacing people with AI, for example? Well, now you have a bunch of people who can't find work because their businesses that would be giving them work can't exist because those businesses get crushed by these large corporations that exist. And now you have a place and time, which I think are heading towards, where all these big multinational companies keep making stuff, but they have no one to sell to. That is late stage. Because capitalism didn't look like that at the beginning. There's a reason most countries that were socialist or communist in the past and turned capitalist, or at least allowed capitalism, their people in that boom period were very happy with it. You look at China, a country that was a communist. It still is communist technically, but before, in the Chairman Mao era, it was not a nice place to live. At least now, and I think the reason up until maybe the last 10 years, Xi Jinping has had such a foothold over the country is that people were at least placated by the fact that they could buy stuff now. You know, the economic miracle of China in the last 20 years was enough to placate the masses. It's the whole breads and circuses thing. Breads and circuses are starting to fail now. And I use China as an example, but it's happening globally in different ways, in different parts of the world, but it's happening everywhere. In Europe and in the West, people cannot afford to buy houses anymore. Straight up. And property is the single most, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing you can purchase, but it is absolutely the gateway to permanence in society. You will not feel genuinely connected to the society you're in until you feel like you can purchase property in that society or have done so. Because that is you saying, I live here now and I'm staying here and I'm going to grow this community, etc., etc. People can debate this, but I just think that until you do that, it's not the same. So then what happens if you can't do that? Well, you won't do the other things connected to that. One of them being raising a family, having a family, attempting to have a family. It's not surprising to me that the fall in the ability of people to purchase housing is correlating with the fall of birth rates everywhere. I don't know where I'm going exactly with this. I've just been listing problems. I think my take is that the leaders of society are trying to solve the wrong problem. They're trying to fix the symptoms rather than fixing the root cause. I guess because fixing the root cause would just be giving up things that they have had, giving up control, giving up coalescence of power and capital. Because effectively, if you want to fix late-stage capitalism, if you want to bring birth rates up, if you want to fix a lot of society's problems in developed nations and now developing nations, and I really hate that term, but I'll use it, what you'll need to do is redistribute means of wealth creation. At least that's the only way I can think. Because how else will you inspire people to actually participate in some of that stuff again? Right now, any self-respecting, particularly Gen Z and lower person who's not an idiot, when you ask them, would you like to have children, even if they would like to have children, they'll still consider, I'm probably having a wage slave. And look, being a wage slave is much better than the other forms of actual indentured servitude or slavery that we've seen in the past. Like, I'm not saying humanity is in a bad spot in that sense. It's probably the best time to be alive in that sense, right? But it still sucks that the majority of people who are born now and 20 years ago and 30 years ago will probably have to work until they die in some way. And not in the way they want to, which is the other thing. There are a lot of opportunities nowadays to do different things, but it's still really hard to get something off the ground that you want. Because the system is crushing you towards doing things that the people at the top of the system want you to do. I was thinking about the army in America in particular. Most of their recruits are recruited because they don't have any other options that can get them where they want to be as fast. Because if you can survive the military for a while, you can get a lot of stuff out of it. But it's terrible that society kind of exists in that way. That's something people have to consider. There's many other examples. Things that are, in my opinion, maybe not the best, even for your mental health as a participant. I don't really care about them in a moral sense, but take the OnlyFans craze that's happened over the last, 8 years. Why is OnlyFans so popular among attractive, particularly women? Because it works, right? It's a very quick and easy way, maybe not easy. Let me not say easy. I think there is a statistic that 1% of OnlyFans models are actually making all of the money, but that's still an avenue that didn't exist basically in all of human history to basically convert attractiveness into money direct to consumer. It's working. People are making a ton of money. They're selling their soul. And again, I don't care about the morality. I mean the actual effects of doing that. There has to be mental and psychological effects of commodifying your body in that way. But then someone might argue, well, we all commodify our body. That's what work is. If you sit at an office chair and you work for 8 hours a day for 40 years, you will have micro injuries from that. You've commodified your body. You've sold yourself. It's just that the way you sold yourself you think is dignified. But anyway, my point is, all of this is late-stage capitalism. You go back to the origin point of society, it's a group of people realizing that they should work together for common goals to stay alive. It's a tribe, right? In a tribe, everyone has a role, everyone has a job, but it's not the same as everyone is told what to do. No, these roles and jobs are done because, if you don't do them, you don't eat. It's almost like everyone's a shareholder in a tribe. But in modern society, there are very few shareholders. If you're a wage slave, if you're a worker, if you're a salaried person, you're not a shareholder in what you're working towards unless you are actually given shares. And cooperatives like that do exist, but they're quite rare. But you will see employee engagement rise dramatically if employees have shares in whatever they're working in. I don't know how to solve these problems, but the only thing I can think of is the absolute key is that redistribution of wealth creation mechanisms to the majority of people again. But I doubt this will happen until you reach an inflection point that might be war or something like that. Because why would the people at the top of this pile of late-stage capitalism give up their ability to be at the top? Why would they do that? You think of taxing billionaires for all their money over 1 billion. It's never going to happen, because to get that through, you'd have to get the billionaires to agree, which is never going to happen. And they'll just pay people signing the law to keep signing it a certain way forever. So my take on late-stage capitalism is that I would put my head down, try and avoid the traps of late-stage capitalism as much as you can, like debt. Try and figure out a way to provide for yourself that isn't so closely tied to working for someone else. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this, but there are many ways. And then try not to tie yourself to society too much, because we don't know what the hell is going to happen in the next 10, 20, 25. Anyway, that's my take on late-stage capitalism. What is yours? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to have many takes on many things. This is a thought stream channel, ramblings out into the ether, but I think it'll be fun. I'll have more fun takes as well, but I thought I'd start with this one since this is kind of popping off right now, especially with everything that's happening in the world at this moment. Anyway, until my next take, I hope you all have a lovely day or night or whatever, wherever you are watching this. Until next time, peace.